Now we turn our attention to the Florida legislature, and I hand it over to my colleague and friend, Vance Aloupis, our CEO.
Awesome. Thank you, Madeline. I have the privilege of spending the next 10 to 12 minutes with two of my favorite people in the Florida House of Representatives, two of my favorite people just in general. Representative Fentrice Driskell from House District 63 and Representative Trabulsy from House District 84. And before we get into the conversation, I want to just reiterate, and you've heard it a number of times today, this last year in the Florida legislature was probably the most transformational year we've seen in early childhood in about 20 years since the passage of the School Readiness Act in 1999. The HB 419, HB 7011, HB 3, all of these bills really transformed the landscape, on an issue that so many of us have been working on for decades. And it's been, it's so nice to see so many of my friends in the chat box and in the participant list. But Representative Driskell, somebody I've had the privilege of serving with for 3 years. We are both former student body presidents. She went to a much better school than I did. She went to a little school up in Massachusetts called Harvard. I didn't get in there, but she was the student body president at Harvard. Not to say that UM isn't awesome, but she was a student body president at Harvard. And I've had the privilege of working alongside Representative Trabulsy for the last year, serving on the Early Learning and Elementary Education and Early Learning Committee, and the remarkable work she's done on literacy. So we'll jump right in, and Representative Driskell, if it's okay, I'll start with you. Over the last 10 years, trying to get people to understand why these issues matter has been so difficult. And it's really the reason I ran for the legislature, is because I would go up there every year and I would talk about these issues, and I'd sort of get patted on the head and say, great work, maybe next year. What was the moment where you realized that early learning, early education, early investment was critical?
Well, first of all, Rep. Aloupis, thank you so much for having me. Rep. Trabulsy, great to be here. And so this is my first time attending the summit. This is magnificent. I mean, we're virtual, so you can't really do it, but wherever you are in your respective place, give yourselves a round of applause, because the turnout is amazing. The chat is on fire. Like, I'm learning just from listening to the speakers and also reading what's happening in the chat. So thank you so much for being champions for early learning and early childhood education. I mean, it is just a phenomenal thing to be a part of. And then, so Vance, my story maybe mirrors yours in a bit, and that education is very important to me. So I'm a product of Florida's public schools. My mom taught public school for over 35 years, and I know the power of a high quality education. That is what allowed me to attain my dream of attending Harvard. And then as I started to learn more about our education system and just really understanding the importance of early childhood education, the importance of making sure that children are at their reading level by 3rd grade, just making sure that our kids have the resources that they need, and how that is an indicator oftentimes of how they will progress throughout their school system, throughout the rest of their career, their educational career. It's supremely important. And so to me, it's the best investment that we can make in terms of education in Florida, and the future of our children is making sure that our early learning system is fully funded and that it's robust, because it makes such a huge difference in the outcome that we see with our families.
Absolutely. And this, Representative, I mean, in Hillsborough County, you have incredible leadership on this issue. You have the Children's Board, which has been, a central figure in investment in early childhood intervention for years now. Your Early Learning Coalition leadership has always been top notch. So a lot of leadership is coming out of Hillsborough County, not just in the nonprofit sector or the quasi-government sector, but also in the business community. We see a lot of professionals, a lot of CEOs who are coming up and saying, this is about the future workforce, and that's why it's a practical imperative. It's not just a moral imperative. Representative Trabulsy, it's so great to see you as well. We spoke last week when you were out in Montana. It's good to have you back. Yes. You're back in the state, right?
I am back in the state.
Awesome. It's good to have you home. Representative Trabulsy, same question for you. What was the moment where you really realized that these issues of early childhood education matter? Because I haven't had to convince you. I see you on our committees, and you care so deeply.
Well, again, I'm just going to say what Representative Driskell did too. I was not a product of a Florida education. However, my children were, and we're a blended family. We have 2 children that went to public school and 2 children that went to private school. And we saw 2 very different models there. So moving into the House and being assigned to this committee was so important to me. And I've mentioned to you, and you've all heard this before, if you know me, that my daughter is a first grade teacher, and going through her education as she moved into early childhood development and into education, we had so many great conversations, and they continue to be ongoing. But my aha moment was really looking back at the end of session and going back and listening to our speaker's opening remarks on opening day. And he really spoke into existence what was so important to the state of Florida. And had I been able to have a looking glass and looking to the future and know that, not only does he have 2 small children, but his wife works with children as well, seeing the needs of children in Florida firsthand, and being able to understand that it's important for us not only to prioritize, but invest in our students. And this includes mentally, physically, emotionally, educationally. It just kind of all came together and was spoken into existence. And at the end of session, we were able to look back and see really what the chancellor alluded to earlier was we reap what we sow. And I think we sowed some really good seeds this year in the legislature. So I'm really looking forward to next year as well.
Awesome. So Representative Driskell, one of the issues that you and I've had the privilege of working on alongside Representative Tom Coe and Representative Brand has been this issue of fiscal cliffs. And it's not an issue that gets a lot of attention in the early learning space, but it's certainly an issue that matters dramatically. And it's, for those of you who are watching who've never heard this term, it's the idea that certain benefits will suddenly drop off if an individual reaches a certain economic threshold. So the example probably for this group would be school readiness and subsidized childcare, where if all of a sudden you get to a point where you're making just just a little bit more money, you might lose that full benefit of a scholarship in our state's subsidized childcare program. Representative, could you talk a little bit about why that issue matters and sort of how you've seen it impact our state?
Right, and I'll say that that's certainly a great example of one of the things that I love about being a lawmaker. I imagine it's the same for you too, Rep. Trabulsy, is that it gives us the opportunity to learn so much. And so with the benefits cliffs, think about it, 45% of Florida's children are from lower income households. 45%, that's close to half. So you have their parents who are working hard or doing whatever they can to build a better life for their families, but sometimes they're put in a situation where they have to choose between staying at a certain level in their career and foregoing professional advancement, because if they were to, take that next raise or, try to progress in their career, then they could lose childcare benefits, they could lose children's health insurance, they could lose housing benefits, for example. And so in a way, these fiscal cliffs and these benefits cliffs keep people stuck. And that's actually just the opposite of what we're trying to do with these benefits, right? Like, we're trying to give people a pathway to a better life and to attain their version of the American dream. And so we really have to think about where those sharp edges are, where those sharp, drop-offs are. And maybe it might make sense to raise the income threshold for some of these benefits so that we don't put people in a situation where they feel like they have to stay stuck and they cannot progress in their careers. So I think it was probably at least a good 2 years ago, perhaps, Rep. Aloupis, that we started looking at this issue with some of the leadership in the House in a very bipartisan way. And I anticipate that work will continue. I feel like it got waylaid a little bit by the pandemic, but I'm hoping that it's something that we can get back to because it's so important for Florida's families.
Yeah, one of the great things, and Representative Driskell, you were a champion for this. One of the great things that we accomplished this year was actually, for the first time ever, looking at the data to sort of know where these fiscal cliffs are manifesting. So we passed a bill this year that will aggregate all of the data to really identify, where can we support families so that they're not put in a position, like you said, Representative Driskell, where they're having to decide, do I grow in my career or do I stay here just so I can make sure that my children have exactly what they need? That's not the situation we should be putting families in. Representative Trabulsy, back to you. You know, huge issue in our state is literacy. I've talked about it a lot. You know, Florida's made remarkable progress in education reform and educational outcomes over the last 20 years. But if you look at the data, we still have close to half of all of our third grade students, 10th grade students who are not reading at proficiency. That is not where we need to be as a state, because our competitors are not Georgia, Alabama, California, Texas. Our competitors are international. So the fact that we still have close to half of our students not reading at proficiency is really concerning. And one of the bills that I had the privilege of carrying was HB 7011, which was more technical in figuring out how do we support teachers in the instruction of literacy. But you had HB 3, which is a really big bill that is going to ensure that books are going to children across the state. Could you talk a little bit about that bill and why it was important to you?
Absolutely. So I was really honored to be able to carry HB 3, also known as the New Worlds Reading Initiative. And as you alluded to, I mean, I live in St. Lucie County, and 38% of our children in third grade are reading below grade level. So from kindergarten to third grade, we say we learn to read, and after that, we read to learn. So 37% of our children in St. Lucie County are not moving forward in the best way possible. So the New Worlds Reading Initiative is great because we're able to identify children kindergarten through fifth grade, actually, and identify if they're reading on grade level. And it could be through testing, or it could be through teacher observation, just depending on, what grade they're in. And if we do identify these children as underperforming readers, then the New Worlds Reading Initiative can step in and offer free books to children. It's a once a month home delivery book system, and it will be specific to the child. So it will be age appropriate. It will be something that the children will have the availability to choose their genre so that they're excited about reading. We'll also be incorporating tools for parents, because we often find out that parents are ill-equipped. It's not that they don't want to teach their children, but they don't know how to teach their children. So we're working really hard with the Lassinger Center at University of Florida State girl. So I had to pause for a moment, but we're working really closely with them to put together a nice kit that's going to be delivered every month to these children and these families to help them grow and learn with their reading proficiency. Something that we did incorporate for all children in the state of Florida through abcmouse.com through the end of the year, which I think is really exciting. And it doesn't matter whether you qualify as an underperforming reader or not. You can go on to readingiq.com/new worlds. And until December 31st, all children in the state of Florida, regardless of their age or reading level, can choose from over 5,500 books. They can also be offered in Spanish as well. So that's a great alternative for our Spanish speaking students. And I'm really excited. We'll be rolling it out by December. It's gonna be a great, I can't wait to see people's new worlds open up, really.
I see Madeline is popping in, which means my time is up, or our time is up. But I would just say that the approach to literacy that we saw this year, I think, is the most comprehensive approach I've seen in the decade of work that I've been involved. When you're looking at it from the vantage point of building home libraries, supporting parents, and making sure that teachers have the resources that they need to effectively teach reading. Those are the three pillars that are essential to ensuring that we get to 100% proficiency in third grade by 2030. But I'll leave with this, and both of you know me pretty well. I keep calling you Representative Trabulsy, Representative Driskell, but you're Fentrice D to me. You know I'm a pretty emotional person, but I really love both of you so much, because I don't have to convince you that these issues matter, and you've been such incredible advocates for this issue. And to be where we are now as a state talking about these issues in the way that we are is so different than it was 10 years ago. But at the end of the day, and this is why it's been my life's work, this is truly about the future of Florida. And I'm just so honored and privileged to work alongside both of you in this fight. So thank you both for being with us today, and I'll see you all in a few weeks, okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Vance. Thank you, Representative Driskell. Thank you, Representative Trabulsy. We're so grateful for your service.